Good afternoon. I'm Kim Bobo, your host of Good Work Chicago. Welcome to the show. This is the show where we interview employers who have made choices around paying people fairly and where we talk with advocates who are trying to raise core standards for all workers. Today, we are delighted to have John Paro with us to talk about his company and really the changes that he's made in his company and really how that's benefited everybody. So, John, first tell me about your company. What do you do?
Well, the Hallstar Company is a company headquartered here in Chicago.
All right.
And we make ingredients largely for the personal care industry. So if you're using sunscreens or you're using hand lotions or you're using really high-end type products for the skin, we make the ingredients that make those products more natural, more functioning, feeling better, protecting you from the sun, things like that.
Okay, Hallstar.
Hallstar.
Hallstar. Okay, and when did this business begin?
Well, the business began in 1986, and it was a collection of several businesses that a handful of people purchased in '86, and started primarily in the industrial markets. Really, we sold additives, flexibilizers, and things like that to the rubber and plastics industry. We still do that today, although a good chunk of our business is now personal care ingredients. But we started in 1986 and did that, and then started getting into the personal care space as well.
And like, how big is this company? Like, how many workers do you have?
Privately held company. We're approximately 200 people.
Okay.
We're adding people quickly. We have people around the world now. We have people in China, we have people in Asia, and people in South America. But the majority of our people are in North America, and a good chunk of them are here in Chicago, because we're headquartered here, and one of our major plants is in the Bedford Park area.
Oh, we like that. We Chicago folks like those Chicago plants. So we really want to talk about how workers are treated. So could you talk with me? I know you've changed your philosophy somewhat on this. So talk to me about, how you think about, when you were first working, how did you think about workers, and how has that changed over time, and why?
Well, I remember very much in 1986 being very happy about the fact of having a chance to invest and buy this company. And I do remember, the workers have always been everything. They always are everything in the company. But there was very much a sense of people that owned and the people that worked. And there was a sense of some groups worked and some people owned. And I think over the years, the more I recognized that the more of an ownership type thing we could make it for everybody, relative to kind of owning the work, owning the space, owning the company, owning the philosophy about what we do, the better it would not only make people feel, but frankly that our results would be a lot better. And that really has played out. Probably starting in the early 2000s, we started thinking about it in terms of paying workers relative to collective success, in terms of what are we trying to do collectively. And I don't really know. I'd like to think that it was changes that I made, but I think it's changes. I think it was more recognizing the spirit innovation in everybody, and recognizing that if we all figure out what we're trying to accomplish, that the collective results would just be better. And I appreciate you saying that I made some changes, but I think all I really did was recognizing that the changes that everybody saw was the possibility in the first place.
Huh. And so, like, what did those changes look like, regardless of where they came from? What did the changes look like?
Well, the first change had to do with a company a company that had its financial wherewithal was really not that great. We were profitable. We were making it. We were paying our bills. We've never missed a payroll. There would tend to be monies at the end of the year. They were very much loaded toward the management side of things relative to bonus. So what we started thinking about is there's some collective things that we know that are simple measures that if we win on these measures, that we can communicate those measures to everybody in the firm. And if we did that, can we set up some kind of compensation where everybody in the firm, top to bottom, participate in the exact same type of methodology relative to kind of a sliding sounds more complicated than it actually is. It's actually very, how do we do? Communicate to everybody how they do, let everybody win at the end of the year, and kind of every month people know exactly where they stand. So there's really not too much of a surprise. So what ends up happening is you could talk about wage, but what ends up happening is everybody tends to do better when we do better.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact the shoulder that people put to the wheel when they're communicated and understand what the objective is so remarkable to me relative to the brain power of everybody in the organization. It's just a very exciting way to work. It's a lot more fun for me. I think it's more fun for the people, and it's nothing I'd go back on. And I talk to people about this a fair amount. I mean, I think it works.
Huh. So we are interested in this show about like how are people paid, right? We've got some laws that establish minimum wage, right? But I understand you guys pay a good deal more than that. So how, tell me a little bit about payment stuff. Do you have benefits? What does the benefits look like?
Well, we don't have anybody that is down in a minimum wage category. I don't know that we think about it in terms of minimum wage to pay the wages that are the right wages for the kind of work people do at our company are higher than minimum wage,
mm-hmm.
and to try to say, well, there's a minimum wage, we can take that down to minimum wage wouldn't make any sense. We want workers that can do the kind of work that's necessary. I also think that it's important for people not to be sitting there worrying about next meals. All people they have families. They have things that they need to pay for. They've got colleges to save for. They've got healthcare expenses. So we have what is a good and competitive health benefit for our people. We have savings programs for our people in the forms of a 401k. It's something that I'm adamant about, even though we do get advised constantly that most companies our size, and matter of fact, most companies of any size, have done away with pension plans because they're expensive and because they're highly risky. And we haven't. And I do feel strongly about trying to maintain. I also feel strongly about trying to make sure that workers are communicated how important it is to save into their 401ks, which we match,
mm-hmm.
and to what those retirement benefits are. Because I worry that we may come into a retirement crisis in this country. I really do. So I don't think our pension plan is the richest pension plan in the world. I don't think our 401k plan is the richest 401k. But when they're put together, it's a good set of
retirement for people.
Good set of benefits.
Yeah, a private pension other than in addition to 401k is almost unheard of these days. So.
Well, our people earn it.
Right.
I'm the one thing. It's not a gift from the company. I mean, we are a successful firm around the world because the people of Hallstar make great product. They sell well. They market well. They invent. They innovate. They know how to collect. They know how to make. They do things well, and they're getting better at it all the time. And their mantra is do it better tomorrow than you do today, right? And I'm always fascinated with hourly wage concept only. Hourly wage concept to motivate people to do better tomorrow than you do today is really kind of, if you think about it, and you say, well, it's hard to find good people today. They just don't want to do. Well, I kind of could understand that, really. I mean, I ask people sometimes when I get into this discussion, I ask people if they've ever rented a car in their life, and of course they said yes. And then my next question is if they ever got it cleaned before they turned it back in. And of course the answer to that question is no, never. And it's the same kind of thing, I think. If you want companies grow, you have to do things better tomorrow than you did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So there ought to be something in it for everybody when that happens. And strictly hourly wages don't really accommodate that. So you can, I'll leave it to people a lot smarter than myself to argue what wages ought to be, but that's really where there ought to be something for collective wins, it seems to me.
Well, but you didn't always operate quite this way. And
No.
What brought about the changes?
There was something that we said at an awards dinner. We celebrate service, and we've been doing that for years. And I had been getting a little bit concerned. On one hand, you have very, very aggressive people trying to make it through the organization. On the other hand, you have people that just really want to be left alone. Both sides of the thing were troubling to me. The very aggressive. And we came up with this concept that work ought to be balanced. And that the concept of faith, family, then Hallstar makes a lot of sense. Now, that did a couple things for us. It said, listen, we think that people need to have room for faith, whatever their denomination, whatever their faith experience is. There should be room for that. And there should be room for family. And we don't want people crawling all over one another and edging out and making their lives miserable at home, or being so aggressive about work, or forgetting the fact that their faith experience is important to them. But Faith Family Hallstar also allowed us to say we don't really think Hallstar ought to be fourth, fifth, or 6th, right? We think work should be important.
Right.
So that allowed us to kind of start talking about it in a balanced kind of way. And when you start talking about Faith Family Hallstar, from a leadership perspective, it became, you can get hung up on, you're the boss, you own a majority of the company, everybody works for you. Yes, they do, but your main job as a leader is to work for everybody else.
To be a steward.
And if you're a steward of everybody else, and the faith aspect comes in there from a standpoint that service-based leadership worked out pretty well several thousand years ago, if I recall, and I think it still works out pretty well. And I believe it strongly because it's the right thing for the people in the organization. It's the right thing for the organization. When the organization grows based on me not being satisfied unless the first guy in, the lowest paid guy in the company makes his 100%. If I worry about that and it's lined up correctly, everybody above that can't lose. But they've got to win first. So the service-based leadership says that the people that work for me directly, their first objective isn't market share. We all obviously need market share and we need to grow our business. Their first objective is to have the team get 100% bonus payout. If the team doesn't get 100% bonus payout, which is down at the bottom, the objectives of the executive group will not met. That's objective number one. So that always puts service-based leadership first in everybody's mind. And I don't say it from the standpoint of look what it's not a great thing that John Paro did. It's collective wisdom of a group of people. It's just unleashing it, really.
So, Faith Family Hallstar. So what does that mean on a practical basis in terms of how you approach workers and work? And if I come to work for Hallstar and I hear this Faith Family and Hallstar, what does that mean for me?
Well, I hope it means, number one, this isn't a company that's trying to keep score of who's burning midnight oil only, or who's the most aggressive with one another. There's a lot of organizational dynamic in companies where relative performance is more important than actual performance. What I mean by that is, it doesn't matter how I really do. It only matters how I do relative to the guy on my left and the guy on my right. And there's a lot of false work product out of that kind of thing, because you're competing against inside the firm instead of trying to get the firm to do as well as it can. We frown upon the overly aggressive behavior relative to performance or individual performance. It just isn't sustainable. I don't think. I mean, I think people. Faith Family Hallstar means service-based leadership is important. If you're in a position of leading people, they're more important to you than you should be to you.
Okay.
Okay, and that's the faith piece of it is leave room in your heart and your soul for what you believe. I'm very careful. We have lots of faith denominations and faith-based people in our organization. I do not try to be specific.
Right, not proselytizing one thing or another.
And some people ask me that, aren't you being aggressive with it? No, I just think that relative to one's life, that Faith Family Hallstar is a better order of things than Hallstar Family Faith. Or I just think it's the right order. I mean, you can argue about, well, faith should be tied with whatever.
Right.
But to me, it's the right order. But it's not supposed to be Faith Family Hallstar, bridge, golf, swimming, fishing, Hallstar. Hallstar's not supposed to be 8 to 9.
Way down there, right?
Way down there, because then the thing doesn't work and you're not being supportive of your teammates, and we can't grow the business and get the people first in paid their 100%. Oh.
But are there implications, like if if somebody wants off for a religious holiday, or are there paid sick days for workers?
Yes.
Are there vacation days? Are there what are the how does that sort of convey itself in policy?
Well, we have as an organization gets bigger, it has paid time off type programs. People get significant paid time off, and we have holiday. We have a set of paid holidays that are all put out at the beginning of the year. I mean, we're off tomorrow and Christmas. We'll be off New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. But those aren't the ones that are really interesting. It's when the child is sick at home, or there's an issue in the family, and whether the people around them, that there's enough support for that particular behavior to the manager to look at that person and say, you will not only will you not be in trouble if you don't come in today for this, you will only be in trouble if you do come in today. And the thing is people, what you worry about in an organization that isn't service-based or isn't based on ownership, or when there is just strictly we worker, you owner, is that people take advantage of those kinds of circumstances. It's not trying to prevent people from taking advantage. It's trying to create a circumstance where they don't want to take advantage because it's going to hurt them and everybody else. More than make it whereby they want to do the right thing. Our biggest problem, frankly, now has to do with adding people when we need to add people. What I mean by that, we can afford to add the people that we need to add, but the people in the organization so own it. They don't want to cut into what might be part of their take at the end of the year.
So they don't want to add extra staff.
They don't want to add extra staff. And they're sitting there and they're dying, and we're seeing them dying. So you got to get some people in. No, we're fine. No, you're not fine. You're good. So
you've got too much work.
That's a good problem. It's a good problem.
It is a good problem. That is a good problem. Yeah. So let's take a break for a second, and let's look at, if you work for a company that is not treating you fairly, and in particular not paying you according to the law, we hope that you will come and look at our wage theft hotline. The number is 773-391-8885. We do run a weekly clinic on Monday nights, but it is off until January. But in the meanwhile, you can still call the wage theft hotline, 773-391-8885, and a lawyer will answer your call, leave your message, and they may call you back in a couple days over the holidays here. But we can help you recover your unpaid wages if you have a problem. So, John, tell me what you think, what are the benefits to the company of paying people this way? And now, again, you've talked a little bit about, how everybody benefits, but really, so what does it mean in terms of turnover, in terms of loss of product in the place? What kinds of problems are reduced, eliminated, or solved by this approach?
Well, the amount of innovative ideas that are resident in people, just in general, is rather tremendous. This process stops that concept of bosses or management putting down how work will be done, and spends more time in a situation where you're creating the right kind of team dynamic and team environment to let the best ideas kind of come up. I don't know that we're ever, or any company's ever done, really getting that sorted out, because it's a very complicated and always improving type of thing. But our people are very motivated to continually improve. They're very motivated to continually improve. They know that they own that process. They know if they continually improve, if we can get more efficient, that we make our goals, and if we make our goals, there's going to be a collective win. So in any company, particularly in a manufacturing company, which we are, you have to invent things, you have to make them, you have to buy raw materials, you have to use energy to convert cetera, et cetera. All raw materials, all inputs are finite. Resources are finite.
Mm-hmm.
They're not making any more. They're not making any more certain metals or certain products, any more crude oil. I mean, yes, maybe a billion years from now. The one thing that's infinite is human potential.
Okay.
It's the only input that any company has that has no limit on it whatsoever. But the interesting thing is we often go about businesses as if that is the one, we limit that potential and we assume all the other inputs are unlimited. And it's the exact opposite that's true. So if you figure out a way to take the lid off the potential of everybody in the organization, and you can't do it with just catchy slogans or posters, or you have to do it with time. You have to have a metric or something that everybody can get behind. And it's not going to, you're not going to announce it and have everybody get there. It took years before, because people have to see that you mean it. They can't just see it, announce it for a quarter.
Right. You can't just call them associates.
You can't just call them. You can't just say we're teammates and call them and just think that they are. You have to do it year after year after year after year, and then all of a sudden, I think people will say, "Wow, they really." But the metric has to be clean enough that it can last that long. It can't be the flavor of the month metric. It has to be a metric that's going to make sense for a long period of time. It's got to be simple. It's got to be understood by everybody.
Well, again, as I've worked in this field for a long time, John, I think I was sharing with you earlier, I see so many employers that really are choosing to go kind of the low road and just pay people the absolute minimum with no benefits. And so if you were advising a new employer, a new startup company, a new guy or gal who's just bought a company, what kind of advice would you give them to think about trying to do things differently?
Well, I appreciate that question because I do that I do offer that. I do that a fair amount because people will ask me from time to time. It's generally the same thing. Figure out the most important thing this organization is trying to do to benefit, whether it be your customers or the communities. What are you trying to accomplish? Try to communicate to every single person what that is, and let them win when you win by doing that. It's really that simple. It's not one size fits all. Different companies have to measure different things. But, it can't be we're going to have these 20 things that we measure, and this one's going to be worth 5%, 6%, 3%, because it gets lost in the mix. And what you're measuring, can it be tracked monthly or daily? And can the workers and all of your teammates know what those are? And can you communicate them, or is it hush-hush? Only management knows that at the end of the year there's a payment.
The secret payment.
And then the payment comes out and people go, well, they don't know whether it's going to be good or it's going to be bad, right? Then it's kind of like playing a game and never seeing the score and never having any idea and having it announced to you at the end, right? If you get them engaged, but don't get them engaged in a phony way. Get them engaged in a real way by communicating the results constantly, so that when it comes toward the close of the year, people are going, okay, we have to get this. This is what we're doing, and we're going to do it. We're going to make it, and that it shouldn't be a surprise. In the big recession year, which was awful, in 2009.
I could testify to that.
It was awful.
It was awful for us too.
That's the 1 year since we started this program that we weren't able to pay a bonus.
Wow.
Not one person at the Hallstar Company complained. Now, the other thing about that year is we also were one of the few companies that didn't lay off anybody. Okay? Right. But that team came back with a vengeance the following year, frankly, made up for everything they didn't get that year. So it was really quite a rewarding, I don't know if there can ever be a rewarding recession, but certainly wouldn't want to have that happen again anytime soon. But it works. I think it works. And I tell people this any chance I get.
We've only got a few minutes left here, but where did some of these values come from for you, John? I mean, again, there's just a value of being a good business person. Were there other values through church, family?
My family and my faith are important, and I think as I've gotten older, I mean, the concept and the mystery of the faith piece continues to grow inside me. I hardly feel as if I I certainly don't know more than others. My family is very important to me. I feel like with as much work as we've done and as hard as we've worked over the years, I've had reasonable balance in my life in terms of getting to spend time with my children. I've got an incredibly supportive wife who communicated with me constantly, even when I was out of town. So I don't want life to be different from anyone else that works at our company. I want it to be the same. I want them to work hard. I want them to enjoy the results of their labor, and I want them to win. I want to win collectively.
Well, we are so delighted to have talked with John Paro, and really the core values, I think, of all of our faith tradition of caring for our neighbor as we care for ourselves. Thank you, John. Thank you for the good work you do here in Chicago.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.